Well, welcome to our Blackboard Tips series, Time-Saving Tips Using the Blackboard Grade Center. We're so glad to have you here with us today for this workshop, whether you're participating live or if you're viewing this archive and you're viewing the recording. Either way, we're glad to have you with us to hopefully gain some valuable tips for saving time, being more efficient, and more effective ultimately in the use of the Blackboard Grade Center. My name is Jason Rohde. I'm the Assistant Director of the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center at Northern Illinois University. And I'm happy to follow up with anyone after the workshop today if you have further questions that we don't get a chance to fully address during the session for those of you participating live, or if you're viewing the archive and you have follow-up questions, feel free to get in touch with me. My contact information is here on the slide, and I'd be happy to follow up with you. So really today, this workshop has developed really organically in our interactions with faculty, working with faculty on specific questions that they have concerning the Grade Center. And in my own experience, having taught with Blackboard now for close to 8 years, I've kind of gleaned some tips along the way as I've taught in different versions of the Blackboard Grade Center. And so my hope here today is to share with you some of these tips, suggestions, and in particular we're going to highlight some of the capabilities in the Blackboard Grade Center that maybe you weren't aware of that can be used to help save you time. And I've compiled all of these tips in a narrative form. I've detailed them in an online handout on the Teaching with Blackboard website. And I have it, the URL is listed here. I'll also include it again at the end of the presentation. And for those of you participating live, in the email that I'll send out, the follow-up email, I'll also include the link there too. So you don't have to feel as though you have to jot down too many of the specific steps and that we're going to go through today, because it all will be detailed for you in this online handout. But I do want to actually demonstrate, I've got about 19 tips that I've compiled that I'd like to hopefully share with you today. And then also, time permitting, we'll open it up for any other Q&A, any questions that you might have about using the Grade Center, maybe something you're trying to do and curious how might that be done. I'm happy to address those questions today as well. And again, if I'm not able to fully answer your question during the time that we have allotted today, I'll certainly follow up with you after the session. So with that, I mentioned the handout, and it looks something like this. This is a quick screenshot of the handout. Not only does it have these tips detailed, but we've included links to some other helpful supplemental resources. So if you notice on the right, we have some related links. We have links to some tutorials having to do with the Grade Center, as well as printable user guides. So this page has a lot of great information, and again, I'll send the link out to those of you participating live. But if you'd like to jot it down, if you're viewing the archive, you have the link there on the page. So here are the tips, 19 in total, that I'd like to talk about today and actually go through. And so I thought maybe I'd just quickly mention them here, and then I'm going to switch into application sharing, and actually we'll walk through these in Blackboard and how do you make use of some of these strategies. So we're going to look at hiding unnecessary columns. So the columns that you have in the Grade Center, there are some columns in there by default that you may not need. So how do you hide those? How do you go about organizing the columns? What are some things that you can do to tidy up the Grade Center or to make it look exactly how you want it to look? Freezing columns, you may want a column to not move. How do you go about freezing that? That can be helpful, especially as you have lots of columns in your Grade Center. We're going to look at the grade scheme that is in the Grade Center and how you can customize that letter grade to display a particular value if you want to alter that to match your grading scale, your grading scheme for your class. We're going to talk about categories and why they're important and why you want to add those. The power of categories. We're going to talk about just customizing titles and columns. You know, how do you go about entering grades? And just a very quick way to enter grades. Adding due dates so that the students can see when a particular assignment was due. You can choose to put in due dates. providing feedback to students. You can put text comments in with a score, so it doesn't have to be just a score, but you can provide some feedback as well. We'll look at the display score and the percent or letter grade. So in addition to putting in a score, if you wanted the student to see, for example, a percentage, or if you as the instructor, more importantly, wanted to see, what does that value equate to percentage-wise or a letter grade, how do you set that up? We'll look at exempting a grade. So if a student is not present, maybe they are exempted from having to complete a particular assignment, whether they have a bona fide reason that they don't have to complete a particular assessment. How do you exempt them from having to complete that in the Grade Center? How do you email students directly from the Grade Center? We'll look at that. We're going to talk about calculated columns, the ability to create a column that perhaps shows a subtotal of quiz scores. How do you set that up if you wanted to see different values in a subtotal? We'll look at smart views, which are really great kind of shortcut queries to just certain values within your Grade Center. We'll point out some of the features such as statistics and history. We'll talk about how you can automatically drop the lowest grade within a category. We will look at weighting grades as well as running reports. And I'm curious, before we move on, how many of you here do weight your grades? If you do, again, give me a green check mark in the polling area, or give me the X for no if you don't weight your grades. But just curious to see here if anyone does in fact weight your grades. And I can talk about weighting. If you don't weight your grades, then we won't spend as much time on that, and I may skip over some of that information. Since we are archiving the session, I do want to touch on it just so that you're aware, and those that are viewing the archive will be aware as well of the capabilities. But for those of you that have responded, it looks like no one here is weighting your grades, so we won't spend as much time on that. And it's actually simpler. The Grade Center is simpler and more straightforward in Blackboard if you don't weight your grades. So ultimately, it can be a good thing to not necessarily have to be dealing with those settings. So these are the tips that I'm hoping that we get through. Time permitting, we should be able to get through all of these. However, if for some reason we don't, these are all listed in the handout that I provided, and I'm happy to provide follow-up feedback and clarification as we move along. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to hop into Blackboard right now. It'll just take me a moment to launch application sharing, and you should now see on your in your screen my screen where I have Blackboard open. And if you do see my screen, if you could just go ahead, give me a smiley face or a screen check mark just to confirm that you're able to see my screen okay. And just want to give everyone a chance to quickly respond. I know sometimes it takes a few moments just for that to initially load, and so I want to make sure everyone does in fact see my screen before we move on here. So Isabel can, and David and Cheryl, very good, thank you. Sandra, all right, looks like it's loading for everyone, and so I'm going to assume that everyone else can in fact see my screen. Very good. So here I am. I'm inside the Grade Center, and something that you can do off the bat is to actually collapse down the navigation menu. So you see this icon here, this little button with the arrow. Clicking on this, you can collapse down the course menu to give you more room here to be able to view more of the Grade Center. And I often do this when I'm working in the Grade Center just to get more space. You can always bring back the course menu by clicking on that icon once again, and it will pop back open. But for the majority of our time here today, just so that we can see more of the columns, I am going to keep the course menu collapsed down. So here you can see that we have that course menu is collapsed. So let's jump in and get started. Here you can see I've gone ahead and I have begun setting up a Grade Center, and I have the few default columns, and then I have a few sample assignments that I've posted for the sake of time so that we could get in and work more with settings rather than creating lots of columns. This is one of our training courses. These students that you see are just training aliases, famous folks that we have created for our Blackboard workshop training accounts. So there's no student data is going to be displayed at all. You don't have to worry that we're going to share anyone's identity here today. But I do have some users, some students that I'm going to be posting some grades for as we go through today. So first of all, as you take a look at the Grade Center, you'll notice there are some default columns that appear. And first being obviously last name, first name. And these two columns are grayed out. And what you'll notice is as I scroll through the columns, you notice that those columns never change. Those are referred to as frozen columns. And we'll talk more about how you could add another value to that in a little bit. But we have these columns, and then there's a username column. This is where the student's ZID would appear. So all of you know, as NIU instructors, faculty, students have their ZID. That would appear in this username field. Student ID is a field that automatically gets created in Blackboard, but there's no information in it. It's basically just an empty column that really has no value for you or leaving it there for your students. And so one of the tips, number one, would be to hide any unnecessary columns. And so I recommend that if there's a column that you don't need, that you go ahead and hide it. And so what you can do is simply, for each of these columns, you'll notice when you mouse over it, there's a little icon. It looks like a double down arrow or chevron looking button that's called an action link. And so as we go through today, I'll be referring to that as the action link. So you simply click on the action link for the column, and there's an option to hide the column. And so we're going to go ahead and hide that student ID column. And I'm going to refresh the page here because it should have been hidden. Let me get back into our course. Sorry about that. Pop back into our Grade Center. And all right, it did not hide, so we'll try the availability column here. And that one did not hide either. So the second way you can hide columns, if for one reason or another they're not being hidden automatically, is to go to, there are these brown buttons that you have up here, this action bar. And the Manage button, there's an option to where we call column organization. So we're going to click on that. And the second way you can hide columns, and for some reason I'm not sure why we're not able to hide our student ID and availability, but we're going to hide those. We've checked those two boxes, and there is an option up here to show hide, and you can hide selected columns. So if you had multiple columns to hide, you could check them, and then I simply click the show hide to hide that column. Now you notice that it's hidden. It's grayed out. And if we click the submit button and we go back, brings us back to our Grade Center. And now if I collapse the menu down again, those columns have been removed. All right, so we've got some other columns here. And since we're talking a little bit about organizing the columns, you do have, there's a column here called Last Access. And this is nice. It shows you the last time each of the students accessed your course, not just logging into Blackboard in general, but your particular course. And sometimes it's helpful to be able to see when you're scanning through your students, you can go to the Grade Center and quickly see when's the last time they logged into your course. That's the Last Access column. Now there's another column here called Weighted Total. And this by default, there's a weighted total and a total column. And both of these columns will automatically be listed in Blackboard. These are default columns. If you don't weight your grades, as many of you don't, you simply go on a straight points type of grading scale, you likely can go ahead and get rid of this weighted total column. It would be a good idea to do that. And so clicking the action link for weighted total, you have some options here. You can delete the column, and that's what I'd recommend if you don't weight your grades. For the sake of our workshop here today, because I do want to come back and talk a little bit about weighting. I'm not going to totally delete it yet, but I'm going to do something. I'm going to try the, there are actually two options here. I can hide the column, or because this is not a system column, I can choose to show or hide it to users. This is helpful if you want to have a column in the Grade Center that you want to still get to as a faculty member, but you don't want the students to see that in their view of the Grade Center. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this option to show hide to users. So by clicking on that, you'll notice now that there's this little circle with a line through icon. And this just is my indicator that the students won't see this column, but I can still get to it currently. So it's helpful to know that distinction. In just a bit, I will log in as a student so you can see how this organization, what it looks like from a student's perspective. So that's our weighted total column. And then there's a total points column. And this generally is, for those of you that just don't weight your grades, but you use straight points, the total column is where it will automatically show you how many points a student has earned in the course to date. Generally, you don't want weighted total and total to be before some of these other columns that we have here. It would be ideal to have that at the far right rather than right here. And the reason for that, and let me go ahead, I'm going to log out and log in as a sample student so that you can see what that Grade Center looks like from a student's perspective. So I'm logging into this same training course as a student. And when the students go to their My Grades, when they see their view of the gradebook, here you can see that for every column that you have in your Grade Center, the students will have a row in their My Grades. And so here's the total column is here at the top. It's the very first row that the students see. And then these are some other assignments that I've already preloaded into our Blackboard course that we're going to organize a little bit. Because ideally you'd want total to be at the bottom so that the students would see how these various points values are going to total up. So I have this total points. We're going to organize these in just a moment. I have some homework, a couple of homework assignments, week 1, homework 1 and 2. I have a sample quiz that I had the students complete in class. I have some scores to post for that. And I have another value here called absences. You can use the Grade Center not just to give scores, but to track other bits of information. So in this case, I want to be able to track how many absences each of my students has had. So rather than using it as giving them a point for every appearance in class, what I want to do is just use the Grade Center in my example today to keep track of how many times has that student been absent from class. And so we're going to use the absences column for that, where we'll put in a value. We don't want it to add to their score. It's just more from a tracking and a communication angle, and that's how we're going to use that. So we'll come back and log back in as this student after we have put in some scores, organized the Grade Center a bit, so you can see what that looks like for that student. All right, so I'm going to log back out and quickly log back in as an instructor. We'll get back into our course from an instructor perspective. All right, so we're back in the course, and I need to go back into my Grade Center and to the full Grade Center, and we'll collapse the menu back down. All right, so I've got a few more columns. We're going to organize them in just a moment. But before we do, notice that here I have 2 columns for week 1 homework that when I mouse over the title of the column, you can see it says week 1 homework 1 and week 1 homework 2, but these names are getting truncated. I can't see the full name. So something that you're going to want to do is to keep your column names shorter so that they can be displayed in the title of the column. So we're going to go in and we're going to rename these columns. So I'm going to click on our week 1 homework 1. We click on the action link for that column, and we're going to go in and edit column information. Now here's where there's an option to enter what's called a Grade Center display name. You can leave the longer descriptive title, but we need to shorten this down. So we could call it homework 1, or we could even abbreviate it shorter than that. But I think homework 1 should fit. So we'll put in homework 1, and for this other homework column, we're going to do the same thing, clicking the action link button. We're going to edit column information, and let's call this homework 2. There. So now we have homework 1, homework 2, and our quiz 1, and then we have the absences column. So now I want to do a little organization where I want to move these around. I want my total to be over here at the right, and I want to maybe put absences here over on the left. We're going to do a little management of the columns. Blackboard, as you add new columns, they always end up going to the right. And so over time, if you add some new columns, you may want to quickly organize the columns as you have them listed. So we're going to go to Manage, and we're going to go to Column Organization. This is where, again, we were showing and hiding those columns a little earlier. So we're going to scroll down, and down here below we have our columns listed. And so we can simply drag and drop them to reorder them. So we have, here's our weighted total, and I can just, putting my mouse over that little crosshair icon, the little crossed arrow icon, I can click and drag, and I can move homework 1 down here to the bottom. I'm going to move total down here to the bottom, right there. And so I've got homework 1, homework 2, and my first quiz. Now let's say that I want to move absences up and have that be the first item that appears. I can set that up as such. All right, so now I can scroll to the bottom and click the Submit button to save my changes. And so now in my Grade Center, I have my columns reorganized the way that I want them. Now let's say that I have these two columns, my last name and first name, that again are frozen, and I really need to have a third column here. So I'm going to go create one more column to illustrate the scrolling, and we're going to call it, we'll just call it homework 3. We'll just go with a shorter column name this time, and we'll say it's going to be worth 5 points, and we're just going to click the Submit button. So now I have one more column kind of illustrating the scrolling that's going on here, and I want to do a little more management. Maybe I always want to see the number of absences, and I want to move that over next to their name, so I can always see that in my view of the Grade Center. We're going to go to Manage and Column Organization, and this absences column, I'm going to drag it up right above this gray bar. Everything above this bar is a frozen column. By putting that absences column above that, it is now a frozen value, a frozen column. So if I go to, and I want to move homework 1, homework 3 up here after quiz 1, and we'll click Submit. So now notice here's that absences column. It's grayed out. So now as I scroll, that column doesn't move. And Sandra asked the question, can you set the columns before adding the students? Absolutely, Sandra. The columns can be set up at any time. In fact, all the settings that I'm walking through today, after you set them up the first time, when you reteach that course and you copy that course into a new section, a new Blackboard section, all of these Grade Center settings can be copied over. So, which is really nice. You can set up the Grade Center the way you want, and then each time you teach that course, you just get a new list of students listed, but you don't have to recreate the columns every time. And just to be clear, in Blackboard, the students will automatically appear in your course. So you don't have to enroll the students manually. Twice a day, Blackboard, NIU's Blackboard system syncs up with my NIU, and the students' enrollments automatically show up. Will I be showing how to copy it every semester? I can show that, Jan. In fact, if you remind me at the end of the session here today, I'll show that as the very last tip. I really should add that to my time-saving tips, but I will show that. So thanks for pointing that out. All right, so we've got some values here. Before we start entering scores, I want to just talk very quickly about a few other customizations that you may want to make, having to do with a few of the other features that are built in. So one is the adding custom categories. So the Manage button within the action bar, if we go to, in the drop-down, something called Categories. Blackboard, the Grade Center, has by default some sample categories. It's a really good idea to make use of categories in the Grade Center because it allows you to create different types of filters or what are called smart views, which we'll get to in a little bit, that can allow you to just see a certain subset of your Grade Center. And so what I recommend doing, and what I do, is in my syllabus, whatever the categories are for the various assessments that I'm going to have, I will create those same categories in Blackboard. So in our example here today, and these by default are the categories that come automatically in your course, but you may want to have categories that are more specific to your assessments. So we're going to create a few categories. I'm going to click the Create Category button, and I'm going to call this Homework because I have some homework columns. So we want to see, I want to have a homework category, and I'm going to create a second category that I'm going to call quizzes. And as I create quizzes, I want to add them to that particular category. All right, so now that I've created those categories, I'm just going to click the Grade Center link up here in the breadcrumb navigation to take us back here to the Grade Center. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign these columns I've already created to those categories. So if I click on Homework 1, the action link, I'm going to edit the column information. And as you scroll down, under Category, there's a category option here. In this drop-down menu, I'm going to pick Homework. This is the category that I created called Homework. And then I'm going to scroll down and click Submit. And I'm going to do the same thing for each of these other columns that I've already created. So again, for Homework 2, I click the Action Link button. I'm going to edit the column information, and I'm going to add this to the homework category as well. Click Submit. And now for Quiz 1, I have a Quizzes category, so I'm going to click the Action Link button for Quiz 1. I'm going to edit column information, and I'm going to put Quiz 1 in the Quizzes category. Click Submit. And finally, I have Homework 3. I'm going to click the Action Link button. I'm going to edit the column information, and I'm going to add Homework 3 to my Homework category. Scroll to the bottom and click the Submit button. Okay, so why did we put these columns into these categories? I'm glad you asked that question, because what we're going to do with those categories is we can create smart views, and we can do different kinds of filters. So there is a filter button here, and so I can go in and I can filter my Grade Center, and I can say for the full Grade Center I only want to see my homework, and now automatically here's my Grade Center with just showing those 3 homework columns. So it's kind of on the fly, a quick filtering. So if you can just imagine if you had a variety of different types of columns, lots of columns in the Grade Center, you can be very selective in how you set up different filters to help you. And you can filter by any of the categories that you are using. So if I wanted to just see my quizzes, now here's just my quiz view. So that's one way you can use categories. And we'll just go back to all categories and close out of the filter. But even more powerful than just filtering is the use of what are called smart views. So when we go up here to Manage once again, Jan, good question. Janet asks, are the filters temporary or do they remain? And can the students see the filters? No, Janet, the students do not see the filters. Those are only for you to save you time in being able to manipulate the data in the Grade Center. The filters are temporary. It's kind of a quick filter, if you will. I'm going to show you right now how you can set up a more permanent filter called a Smart View that you can easily get to. So perfect segue into where we were going next. In the Manage button, I'm going to go down to now what are called Smart Views. And we're going to create a Smart View for the quizzes, as well as homework. So here we are, we're in Smart Views, and by default, for each of the categories, the system automatically, there will be a Smart View set up. Since we're not using assignments or tests, I'm going to get rid of the little star under Favorite. We're going to create a new Smart View, and we're going to call this Homework. We are going to add it as a favorite, and I'll show you where that comes into play in just a moment. And a Smart View, we can do a whole workshop just on Smart Views. Basically, these are custom queries or filters that are more permanent that you can get to once you set them up. Anytime you log into your course, you can see these. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a category and status view, where we're going to say we want to see just the homework, any columns within the homework category, and we want all users. So all the students in our course for that category. And we'll click Submit. We're going to repeat that process for quizzes. So again, I'm going to go to Create Smart View, and I'm going to call this Quizzes, and we're going to add it as a favorite so that we can easily get to it in the course menu. Again, it's going to be a category and status view, and we're going to say we want just quizzes, and we want all users. I'm going to click the Submit button. Okay. So I'm going to go back to the Grade Center, and I'm going to bring back our course menu. Now if you notice down here in the Course Management, when we go to Grade Center now, I have the full Grade Center, but here are those two Smart Views that I've set up. And so if I click Homework now, it jumps me to just, here's my Grade Center view, and here's just my 3 homework columns. Likewise, if I go to Quizzes, and it takes me to just the quizzes view. And these are more permanent in the sense that once they're set up as Smart Views, you can get to them every time you log into your course. And because I marked them as favorites, they show up automatically here right within the Grade Center menu. So you can quickly get right to a particular collection of assessments within the Grade Center. Now you can create Smart Views for different groups. If you use groups in your course, you can add and remove these Smart Views at any time. They're very powerful, but as you have lots of columns in your Grade Center, these Smart Views can save you a lot of time in getting right to the particular types of assignments that you want to display. All right, so we're going to go to our we're going to work in the homework set of assessments here. So I'm going to collapse down our course menu again, and I have these homework items. Before I enter the scores, one other thing I'm going to do is enter due dates. If you get questions from students, when are these particular assignments due? Something that you may want to do is enter a due date for them. And what this does, if I click the action link and I go to Quick Column Information, here you can see the initial setup of the column. You can see information, that it has been already pre-defined. Points possible, which category it's in. The due date, if we put a due date in there, that will display for the students in their My Grades view. So as they start seeing these assessments, it's very clear to them when these different assessments are due. So we're going to add a few due dates, and then I'll show you eventually what that looks like in the Grade Center. So I'm going to put due dates for Homework 1 and 2, but I won't put them in Homework 3 so that we can compare what that looks like. So we're going to edit for Homework 1. I'm going to click the action link, and then we're going to edit the column information. It's the same place we went to create the category. We're in the same screen now, but we're also going to go ahead and put in a due date. So I'm going to check the due date box. I'm going to click on the little calendar, and let's say Homework 1 is due today at perhaps we'll say 4 p.m. Or maybe I'll give them until the end of the day, until tonight. All right, so clicking Submit, and let's say that Homework 2, again, I'm going to click the action link, we'll edit the column information, and we'll make Homework 2, let's say it's going to be due next Wednesday, again at the end of the day. Click Submit. So I've added some due dates, and it'll be more apparent when we look at it from a student view, the value in doing that. If I go to quick column information, now you see that due date is listed and is associated with that column. So we're ready to start putting in some values. So I have the homework, the students have turned it in, and for all the examples that I'm going to show here today, we're assuming that the students are turning in this work to you, or they're doing it in class, and you're using the Grade Center more or less to post the scores for them to see. If you certainly can use Blackboard to collect their work electronically and to provide them, their papers back electronically, and to put those scores. That's a whole different workshop where we talk about using those kinds of assessments. The principles that I'm going to share today can be applied to those as well, but for the sake of our examples, we're going to focus on how do you just post the scores within the Grade Center. So I'm going to go through, and perhaps I already have the scores on a piece of paper here, and I just want to type them in. The Grade Center works very much like an Excel spreadsheet in the sense that you click in a cell, you put in a value. So this homework is a 5-point assignment, and Neil's got a 5 out of 5. When I hit enter, it will move down to the next row, and I can simply enter the second value. 4 for Johannes, Isaac got a 5, Louis a 3, and so forth. So I'm going to go through and enter those values. So now when I hit return, because I got to the end of the last row, it takes me to homework 2, the first cell in homework 2. And again, I could go through and enter their values. So let me just put a few values in here. Now, beyond simply just putting a score in, let's say that you also wanted to provide some feedback. Another tip, something that I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from my students, and I hear a lot of feedback from faculty, is to not only give the student a score, but provide a little bit of feedback as to why they got that score. So, maybe this Louis here with a 3, I want to give him some additional feedback. So after you put the score in, and you see that score, when you mouse over that cell and you see the action link, if you click on that, the menu that appears, there's an option to add a quick comment. And this is something that the student would see. So here I could say, missed key concepts in problems 1 and 2. And I'll click the submit button. So now I've saved, for Louis, when he sees that score, he's also going to see that feedback. Since I'm using Neil's as the student example here today, let's put some feedback in his score as well. Fantastic job, Niels. All right, so we've given him some feedback as well. And for his homework 2, let's also give him another quick comment. Okay, so we've put in some quick comments, and that feedback can be really helpful to your students in giving them that clarification. So now if I scroll over in the Grade Center here, I'll be able to see kind of my running score, my running total score. Let me come out and come back into my Grade Center. So because I'm in just my homework smart view, I don't see the total score. So we're going to go back out to the full Grade Center. And so here's my homework 1, homework 2. I haven't put in a quiz or homework score yet, but as you can see, here are the total point values, and they are adding up to show a total of these values thus far. So something else that we can do with the total is sometimes you want to keep a running percentage of how the student is doing in the course. Sandra, comment about there's no indication that a comment is in those columns. You don't see it initially, Sandra. It is here. If I go back to Neil's and I go back to the quick column, there's the value. The student will see it, and I'll point that out when we get to taking a look at the student view in just a bit. Okay, back to the total points. So let's say that in addition to seeing just their total points, you want to see how is this student doing in the class to date. You can add what's called a secondary view here of this total points. So in this drop-down, I'm going to click on the drop-down arrow, and we're going to edit the column information for this total points column. And this is a special column because it shows a sum of all the grades for a user. We're going to add a secondary display, and let's say that we want this to show a percentage. This will then, if we scroll to the bottom, I click Submit, we now see the points they've earned, and then in parentheses, the percentage that that student has earned to date in the course. So this can be helpful to give you that running total of how are they doing. Currently, Jan, great question. Does the student see this as well? What the student sees, they see just the primary view, not the secondary view by default. What you could do is you could choose to create another column, and we're going to do that right now, that the student would see their letter earned to date in the course. So they could see not only that, but you could choose to show them, create a second total column that would give them this view. And so we're going to do that. We're going to create a column. This is one of the tips. We're going to create, instead of creating just a static column, the second option up here, the second button in the action bar to create a calculated column, we're going to create a second total column. So we'll call this, this is their grade earned to date value. And so what we'll do is for the primary display, we're going to make this a letter, and we'll make the secondary display be a percentage. We'll scroll to the bottom, and this is going to include all grade columns, and we're going to calculate it as a running total. And this is really important to know in a total column. The students, if you calculate it as a running total, the student, it will exempt the scores that the student hasn't, there's nothing, no value there. So it will give a true running total of how are they performing in the course to date. If you have a student that misses an assignment, it's really important that you put a 0 in for that assessment so that Blackboard does not omit them from having to complete it. And then by default, we are going to include this in grade score calculations and show it to the students. So actually, we're not going to include it. I changed my mind because this really is more of just giving them a snapshot. It's not adding into a running total, that this is going to be added to. So we'll click the Submit button. And now over here, we have this grade earned column that does give them kind of a snapshot of so far they're earning a B in the class or an A or so forth. That's the student will see this. They won't see the percentage, but they would see this letter grade here that we have put there to date. So you can use the total columns to, for example, show the students their final grade earned in the class. I could call this final grade, and I could hide it, and then at the end of the course I could just show it to the students, and it would tabulate and show the final grade. Now, how is Blackboard able to tabulate what this letter is and know what this is? You have in your Grade Center something called a grading schema. So in the Manage bar, if we go to Grading Schemas, we click on that, there is a default letter grading schema. And if you click the action link for letter, you'll see that there is the standard NIU grading scale is by default in your course. So anything from a 90 to 100 is listed as an A, 80 to 90 a B, and so forth. You can customize this default letter grade view, or you can create your own, create a separate one, and have that be tabulated, used to calculate grades if you wish. So this is, using that custom view with a total column will give you this for the student, this kind of view that the student will see. So I'm going to log back in as the student, and we'll just take a look and see what does this look like now from a student's perspective, the changes that we've made thus far. So I'm logging in as Niels Bohr, and as I come in, here you can see for each of the columns, here's the title, homework 1, 2, and so forth. Here are where those comments appear, those quick comments that we put in with the score. So they see the last time that the student was in the course. We see the last time as the instructor I graded the assignment, the grade I gave, and then my comments. Here's that grade earned to date is showing an A out of a total possible 10 points. So they can see kind of that running view. For each column, each item, there is a details button where if we were to put in a description, and by default we haven't entered any, they see the category and they see the description is listed there within that details area. So I can see that homework is within the homework category and provide some clarity for the student. So that's a student view. Let's get back into our course as faculty, and we'll take a look at a few other quick settings. Okay, so back to our Grade Center. I mentioned this absences column where I could put in if a student has an absence. So maybe we'll go down and Louis Pasteur here has an absence. So I can put in a value and just use this more again as a running total. It's set up so that he's earned a 3 and a 2 on his 2 homework assignments for a total of 5 points. I have a 1 in the absences column, and his total points is only 5. So this column that I set up, this absences column, if we go in and we edit the column, I'll just point out that I've set it up as a text column. If you want to, in the Grade Center, if you want to, thanks Isabel, and hope you have a great day. If you, in the Grade Center, want to track something but not have it add into their score, you can make the primary display, instead of making it be a score, you can pick text. And then you can type any value in you want for that column. And so that's really what I've done. I've created a column with text as the display. I've made it worth 0 points. And I've made sure that it is not included in the Grade Center calculations. So I just selected no. And then clicking submit, I have a column now that I can put a value in and it doesn't impact their total score. Okay. So that's important to know if you're going to be tracking information. Maybe you want to send Louis a quick email. I noticed he wasn't in class. I noticed at a quick glance his scores are lacking, and I want to quickly email him. So I can click the box to the left of his name, and then I can go up and send him an email. So mousing over the email button, I can email selected users. And directly now from the Grade Center, I can quickly send Louis an email. And put in my message, and I can click the submit button, and then that'll be sent off to him directly from the Grade Center. Thanks, David, for hanging in today, and I'll send out a link to the archive. So a couple of other quick tips I just want to point out, and then we'll wrap up for today. You can see a history of the changes that you've made in the Grade Center. So this is helpful if you make an adjustment and then maybe you entered the wrong cell. How do you go back and fix it? What can you do? If you go to Reports, the Reports button, and you go to View Grade History, this Blackboard keeps a track of all the changes that are made to the Grade Center. So you can see over time the adjustments that I've made just today during our workshop to the Grade Center. That's all been cataloged here. And so if you ever needed to go back and kind of filter through a change that was made, you'll find those here in the Grade Center Grade History. Something else that you can do is pull up some quick statistics on a particular assignment. So for homework 1, maybe I want to see a snapshot of how my students performed. I can click on the action link for that column, and you can go to Column Statistics. Clicking on that, it'll pull up for that column some information about that assessment. It gives me some stats, the distribution, which students I'm just posting a score, so we don't really see anything here, but it gives you a grade distribution, so you can quickly see overall how your students performed for that particular assessment. And then you can jump to the next column, simply clicking the little arrow up here. Now I'm looking at the homework 2 column and the statistics breakdown, grade distribution. So that's helpful to be able to see those statistics as well. Now I mentioned adding and dropping the lowest score, and that's where weighting comes into play. So for those of you that weight your grades, none of you I believe here do, but if you're viewing the archive and you weight your grades, something that you can do is you can go into Edit Column Information, and you can set up weighting here. And this is where we could say the different categories are worth different point values. And so I could say quizzes is going to be worth a particular value here. So for quizzes, maybe quizzes are going to be worth 25% of my score. I can drop, this is where I can drop the lowest grade, or I can have it be, I can drop highest or lowest, or I can also use only the lowest or highest value to calculate for a particular assessment. So you can get quite fancy in some of those advanced calculations using weighting. You would want to make sure though that your weighting has to add up to 100%. So I'm not going to completely complete the setup here, but if you do weight your grades and if you'd like assistance with setting that up at any time, be sure to just follow up with us and let us know. So I'm going to cancel out of here. All right, so I'm just going to look at my list real quick. I think I've covered all of the tips here. You can run reports. There is the ability to create a report right here, and you can maybe like a printable progress report, if you will. If you wanted to create one of those for your students, you can do that. So the last thing, and getting back to the question earlier about how do you copy all of this? Once you set this up and you get this set the way you want to be able to copy it to a new course. The way that you'll do that is you would have your new Blackboard section for the new semester, and in your former course, the old course where we are right now, let's say for example, we would go to, there's an option in the control panel called Packages and Utilities, and then if I scroll down a little bit farther, I'm not sure if you can see this at the moment, but it's called Course Copy, and let me click on that to bring this up. Collapse this down. Now you can hopefully see it. So here's Course Copy under Packages and Utilities, and I'm going to click on that, and it will bring up a set of dialog boxes to walk me through doing a course copy. And I can choose in my course copy to just copy the gradebook, the Grade Center settings. And that's something you want to make sure you would copy. All the columns, the weighting, if you weight your grades and such, can all be copied over. And my apologies that this isn't, here it comes. It's loaded. So I would copy, I would pick into an existing course, I would browse, and it would bring up my courses. And so I would pick the course that I want to copy into. And then I would simply need to make sure that I check this option to copy the Grade Center columns and settings. You can copy as much or as little of the course as you want, but that's the value you need to check at minimum so that your Grade Center copies over. It won't copy the scores of the students, but it'll copy all those settings. So you'll have that all that you can work from. And then you simply click the Submit button, and that will initiate a copy. And it happens in real time. Typically within a minute or so, you should then see your Grade Center in your new course. So with that, I see that we've hit the end of our time for today. So just wanted to, as we wrap up, I know we went quickly through those tips, but I hope that it's been helpful to kind of see a few little shortcuts that you can make along the way to hopefully save you some time. Again, I'll send out a follow-up email with the links to more information, and I'll also include a link to an evaluation of the workshop, since I know that a couple of folks had to head off to go teach a class. As I mentioned, the archives will be available online as well as in podcast form, and you can get those in iTunes. If you're an iTunes user, you'll be able to just search for NIU Faculty Development and you'll find this archive. You can follow Faculty Development on Facebook or Twitter. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. And I will email out a link to the archive once it's available. Thanks, everybody.